most of you probably already know, if you're at least remotely interested in mechanical engineering, it's an extremely broad field. We have faculty members that work in areas such as combustion, automotive systems, biomechanics, robotics, manufacturing, energy systems, building energy management, power plant energy management, green energy, solar cells, all sorts of things, renewable energy, acoustics, vibrations, controls. So mechanical engineering is truly a broad field, and our engineers work in all sorts of industries across the nation. And you can do any kind of work at the graduate level, which is mainly what we're talking about today. Graduate level projects might involve analytical type studies. They might involve experimental studies where you've got actually hands-on work, or they might involve a combination of those two, where you're doing some sort of numerical study and then backing it up with experimentation. So really now that's more for the experimentation works better for the on-campus students, but really the nice thing about the graduate program is it allows you to focus on the aspect of mechanical engineering that you enjoy the most. So you get to kind of pick a specific area and focus on that area. And that doesn't preclude that you're learning some of the other topics that I've been talking about, but as you'll see in a minute when we get to the curriculum, you really get to focus on an area that's of interest to you. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see that in the distance program, the one thing that I think is really great, excuse me, is that the distance courses are identical to the on-campus courses. The way that occurs is, like, for example, I taught a distance class this morning at 8 o'clock. I go in, I get suited up to record, and I basically lecture to my on-campus students. And the distance folks record that lecture, record any questions that occurred during that lecture from the on-campus students, and then that video for that lecture excuse me, gets posted within just a couple of hours, and then the distance students have full access to that lecture. So you're actually getting a lecture that occurs in an on-campus setting. And then if you have questions, you can email the professor. I get emails on a very regular basis and respond to them. Occasionally, if a student has a question, they can call me on my office phone. But I'm available to answer questions just like I would for an on-campus student. In terms of the courses that we offer, this is somewhat of a relatively new program. We've been doing the master's level distance for, I guess, maybe a little over a year and a half now. But Alabama, in mechanical engineering specifically, is not new to the distance program. Our undergraduate distance program has been in existence for, gosh, probably close to 20 years. So the faculty that are teaching distance classes have been doing it for a long time. So teaching distance is nothing new to us. But in terms of the classes that are offered, we offer our core mechanical engineering graduate classes on a very regular basis. And usually the way we do it now at the graduate level is when the class is first offered, we will offer a distance section to go with that. Now that being said, occasionally if nobody registers for those classes might get dropped. However, if there is a class, if you decide to apply to the program and get admitted, if there's an on-campus graduate level course that's offered that's for some reason not being offered at the distance, if you will say get in contact with me, there's probably a very good chance that we could get that offered as a distance course, because all we have to do is just make sure we have a room available for that. And what I mean by core courses, there's certain courses that a lot of our students take, like ME 501, Mechanical Engineering Analysis, ME 562, Intermediate Dynamics. Those are courses kind of on my side of the house. We have people in the thermal systems that offer things like thermodynamics and heat transfer at the graduate level, and those are offered on a very regular basis. The elective courses are kind of a little bit more of the specialized courses, but those are also offered on a very regular rotation. Like, for example, right now I'm teaching a summer session of mechanical vibrations, and I've got just about as many distance students in that class as I do on-campus students. And then I know next term in the summer there's another graduate level course that's going to be offered, and then there's probably a handful of courses in the fall semester that are going to be offered via distance as well. The academic advising for the graduate level is a little bit different than we do for the undergraduate level. At the graduate level, when you kind of pick an area that you want to specialize in, and I'll talk about that in just a minute, we like to hook you up with a faculty member that kind of conducts research in that area. So they can give you some advice on courses to take, things that relate to the type of work that you're doing. For example, my students, my area of specialty is acoustics and vibrations. So if I get a student that's interested in that, I would say, okay, you probably want to take a vibrations course, take an acoustics course, intermediate dynamics, the course I mentioned a minute ago, that relates very heavily to what we do in the field. The types of analyses that you're going to be doing, ME 501 would be a very good course to take, and that would count as a math course. So the faculty members kind of give you some advice on classes to take, but I would say it's probably very rare that any two students have the same curriculum. It's a very customizable, a la carte type of curriculum where you get to choose things that really interest you. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see how the curriculum is structured for distance students. The distance program is a non-thesis option. It requires 30 hours of graduate level coursework. Within that 30 hours, we like to we like for students to specialize 18 hours of that in a major area, and that's what I was talking about a minute ago, like with my students taking vibrations, acoustics, intermediate dynamics, those sorts of things. So basically you take 6 courses that are specialized, and there is a little bit of flexibility in what you take, because say for example if I had a graduate student that was interested in the controls aspects of vibrations, they might put in like ME 577 advanced control systems. Whereas if I had another student that was not interested in that aspect, then they probably would not take that course. So even within a specific area, there's a lot of flexibility in the types of courses that you take. And then we also require 6 hours of mathematics. And I guess I skipped a bullet. There's also the 6 hours of approved coursework in a closely allied area. Basically what that means is you can very easily take courses outside of mechanical engineering and count them in your MSME program. And an example of that would be, again, if I had a student that was interested in vibrations, say there's a course offered in aerospace engineering on structural dynamics. That would be something that very closely relates to the area, so they could take that course via distance and count it toward their mechanical engineering program. And then we also require 6 hours of mathematics, again within that 30 hours, and that does not necessarily have to be an MATH math course. Like I said a minute ago, ME 501 Mechanical Engineering Analysis is a graduate level course that we will count as a mathematics course. And then there's probably a half a dozen or so other types of non-math courses that will count. If you go to the ME website and click on the graduate link at the top, there's a link at the bottom to the ME Graduate Student Handbook, and in Appendix B it is, I believe, of that, there's a whole list of the courses that will suffice for mathematics. But you can take mathematics courses if you want to. So if we look at the next slide, in terms of what's required, I mean, we certainly have the 30 hours of coursework that I just talked about, and then as you get close to the end of that 30 hours of coursework, we require all of our students to pass a comprehensive exam. Now that sounds a little intimidating, but it's not. It can be any number of things. You can get with a professor that you had a class from, and you could say, you know, can I take a comprehensive exam from you? It could be if we have on-campus students that are in the PhD program that use their proposal for their PhD as their comprehensive exam. We have students that write journal papers or conference papers and use those. Suppose you are taking a class from a professor and that class involves a fairly in-depth project where you write a report associated with that project. If your committee is satisfied with that, they can use that report to serve as your comprehensive exam. It just needs to be something that you've done beyond regular, homework and exam type coursework that shows that you've done a little bit of work in a specific area. And so again, there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what that comprehensive exam means. So if we go to the next slide to talk about how to get into the program, certainly a bachelor's degree of some sort is required. Generally, we would like to see a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, but that is not required. We do consider other types of degrees. Certainly any of the engineering type degrees like mechanical engineering, aerospace engineering, civil engineering, those would have undergraduate courses that would easily port into our bank of prerequisite material that we like to see. We get a lot of applicants from the field of physics. I'm trying to think what other fields are typical to apply. I've had some apply from a chemical field, chemical engineering, or even chemistry. If you go back and reference that handbook I talked about just a minute ago on the ME website, if you go back up to Appendix A, there is a list of about, I think it's about 30 to 33 hours of required undergraduate coursework that we like to see all of our MSME students have before they come into the program. Because really when you get into courses like intermediate dynamics or heat transfer or thermodynamics, we are assuming that the students entering those courses have some undergraduate material related to those types of areas. Now, it may not be specific, you may not have worked specific problems for that class, but we're assuming that there is background material that you have so that we don't have to go back and cover that. And so those courses listed in Appendix A would be courses that we would expect most of our students to have. Now the background courses are kind of broken up into three areas. There's kind of the core sciences, courses like physics, differential equations, calculus 1, 2, and 3, what have you, and then a couple of other core type courses that we expect students to have. And then there's two other areas that list a little bit more specialized courses, and one of those is on the mechanical system side. And if you were going to pick an area of specialization at the master's degree, say in vibrations or in control systems or biorobotics or something like that, you're probably going to need more of the background material for the mechanical system side. That would be like mechanics and material, those types of things. Whereas if you're more interested in things on, say, the energy or thermal system side of things, you want to do an area of specialization in building energy management or power plants or something like that, you're probably going to need more of the thermodynamics and heat transfer type of background. So that would require a smaller or a different subset of that smaller group of undergraduate material. And if you have any questions about that, you can certainly follow up with me with an email, and I can point you to that material. Now, it is possible at the graduate level to take some of those courses while you're in the graduate program. Usually what would happen is if you have a background that is not necessarily going to be one that includes all those, you can still go ahead and get admitted with a Bachelor of Science degree. And then in the admissions, I would say, okay, you may need to go back and review that list and see if there's any undergraduate material you need. But it's still going to be possible to take some graduate level courses without having that material. But when you get into the specialization, that's where it's going to be more of a challenge. So that kind of covers the first bullet and the second bullet. In terms of a GPA requirement, we like to see a 3.0 GPA or higher on a 4.0 scale, and then a GRE score of a 300. However, if you've been out working in the field with a post after your BS degree was obtained for 5 years, and you can show on your resume where you have work experience related to that field, what you can do is once you apply and upload your resume, if you will contact me directly, we can actually petition the graduate school stating that you have 5 years of field-related experience, and then they will waive the GRE requirement. So you don't have to go back and take that GRE after you've been out of school for such a long period of time. But we do that on an individual basis. That's not something that occurs automatically. So if that's something of interest to you, contact me and we can make that happen. Now, it is possible to get into the program with a GPA below a 3.0 or a GRE below 300. If one of those occurs, what we feel you're close enough to being meeting those requirements, we can give you what is called a permission to continue. And basically what that means is during the first 12 hours of coursework, you need to maintain a 3.0 grade point average. And that's really true for any graduate student, but with the students that are admitted with the permission to continue, the graduate school scrutinizes those GPAs a little bit more strictly in the first 12 hours. But that's typically not a problem. So if you don't exactly meet those requirements, there's still probably a chance you can get into the program. So on the next slide, this is kind of the basics of the admissions process. The applications come into the online system. Students upload their resume. They need to upload a short statement of purpose. That can be very basic, just a paragraph or two. Why do you want to go to graduate school? And perhaps, if you know at this point, maybe what you would like to study. Then once that's in and the transcripts are received, now we can process an application without official transcripts. However, before you're allowed to enroll, you would need to provide official copies of those transcripts to the graduate school. And then we need a couple of recommendation letters. Maybe if you've been working in industry, a couple recommendation letters from colleagues or former or current or former supervisors, or you could also maybe get former faculty members from a university that you attended for your recommendation letters. But then once all that material is provided, the application goes into the graduate school system. They do a preliminary review of that, and then they send it over to me in the department to do a departmental review. And then we submit a recommendation decision back to the graduate school, and then they make a final decision on admission. Now that sounds like a complicated process, but it's really not. Once your application is submitted, we can actually process an application in just a few days. And as soon as the graduate school hits a decision and says that they hit admit, within just a couple of hours after that, you can actually sign up for a class. So, you know, if you decide within a week, I don't recommend this, but if you're like a week or so out from the beginning of school, it's still possible to get you admitted for that semester. And I know that's important for distance students, because a lot of times distance students don't know their schedule for the upcoming semester and don't know if they're going to have time to go to school or to take classes. Either way, I recommend, you know, if you're interested in doing that, go ahead and apply now. But if you don't think you're going to be able to start in the fall, but then it turns out that you can, and it's getting kind of close to the start of school, let me know, and we'll see what we can do to get an application routed through the system as quick as possible. Now, we got a bullet here that talks about funding decisions. That's usually not an issue for distance students. Most students are off campus, and really the funding only relates to on-campus students. So I think that's really all I have to say. Like was noted earlier, you've got my contact information. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat board, and I'll be happy to address them at the end of this session. Or if you want to contact me by email or by phone, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. And I have also included in the chat box on the bottom left-hand side of the screen the link to the ME Graduate Handbook. So you'll be able to look up what the information that Dr. Shepard was mentioning a little bit earlier in the presentation. And as a distance learner, you will have access to the same resources available to on-campus students. You are eligible to apply for federal financial aid. A student eligible for military educational assistance may also use the educational benefits here at the University of Alabama. Distance learners have access to all university library resources, including access to scholarly databases, assistance with writing and citation, tools and tips for research, and the Interlibrary Loan Program. There is also a dedicated distance learning librarian on staff to assist students as they navigate through the library resources. The Writing Center offers online assistance and tutoring services to students who are unable to visit the campus location. The Center for Academic Success provides individualized tutoring, study skills workshop, and exams review through web-based methods to meet the needs of distance learning students. Blackboard tutorials are always available for those who have never taken online courses before. Distant learning students pay a flat hourly tuition rate regardless of residency. This rate does not include any applicable course fee or books. Students have the option to purchase access to the Student Health Center and the Student Recreation Center. Unfortunately, you must be enrolled as a campus student in order to be eligible for athletic tickets. The College of Continuing Studies offers scholarships to students who are enrolled in degree programs facilitated through continuing studies. You must be currently admitted or accepted for admission in order to apply. Applications are accepted year-round, and scholarships are rewarded each semester. Now, I'd like to share some information about the University of Alabama and the College of Engineering. The university was established in 1831 as the state's first public college. Approximately 38,000 students attended UA, with about 5,500 of those students enrolled in graduate programs and about 4,800 enrolled in distant learning programs. We are an accredited and reputable institution. The College of Engineering was established in 1837 and offers four degree programs for distant learning students. Almost 5,550 students are enrolled in the College of Engineering and work with over 130 faculty members in various fields of studies. The College of Engineering allocates over $32 million to research on an annual basis. All undergraduate programs are also accredited by Engineering Accreditation Commission of ABET, ABET. And as mentioned earlier, in the next few days, you will receive an email with information that includes important website addresses and contact information that will include my information, also Dr. Shepard's contact information, as well as the link to the record session. And that will conclude our presentation. I'm going to put my contact and Dr. Shepard's contact on the screen. So if you want to reach out to us, feel free to jot down our information. And now we'd like to open the floor up for questions and answer. I will read out the questions, and Dr. Shepard would help me answer the questions. First question I have: what are your typical acceptance rates?
That's a really hard question to answer. I just pulled up my statistics for last year and for fall and spring, and I guess I would have to advertise the official acceptance rates is somewhere between 50 and 60%. But the reason that's a little deceiving is because the numbers I get reported from the graduate school include decisions that have an AD on them, meaning admitted. When an international student, for example, applies and is accepted, the graduate school does not officially accept them until they can provide financial documents. And that means they can show that they have funds to come over to the U.S. and participate in graduate school and be able to pay for it. And that really kind of slants our numbers because I don't have the statistics on how many of those actually get admitted. Now, in terms of the distance program, I can tell you that the acceptance rate tends to be a lot higher. I mean, I don't know. I don't have the number. Let's see if I have the number here of distance applications I've had in the last year. I don't believe I have that. I have that parsed out. But anyway, the acceptance rates tends to be pretty good.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have: I'm already attending the distant learning program for mechanical engineering. However, my GPA is under a 3.0, but this is my second degree. Could I use my first degree in mathematics to apply?
That's something we need to look at probably on an individual basis. The reason I state that is usually students that already have graduate level courses in mechanical engineering. Let's see here. What is it? I'm trying to see if the question. The question doesn't really state whether the credit in mechanical is at the graduate or undergraduate level. The reason I ask that is if, say, you already have graduate credit that you would want to transfer in and use toward your master's in mechanical engineering, depending on what those grades are, you would need to decide, okay, do I want to submit those as part of my official application? Because if you're going to transfer them, you would want to submit those as part of your application. If you don't want to use those hours and you basically want to start afresh, then you don't have to submit anything that you don't want to submit as part of your application. And so you could use your, I guess your first degree being an undergraduate degree for the application into the program. But, you know, for example, if you've got 12 hours at the graduate degree already and you want to use those hours, that's something we probably need to look at to see if that's something you want to submit with an application.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have, what are your most typical areas of specialization?
Oh gosh, I don't know if there are typical areas. I mean, we have a lot of faculty working in internal combustion engines. We have a lot of faculty working in thermal systems, energy, those sorts of things. We have quite a few faculty working in manufacturing. I think the manufacturing and materials area tends to be a hot area right now because people are interested in metamaterials. That's kind of the big buzzword right now. So I see lots of applications in that area. Dynamic systems controls tends to be an area that people are interested in. And I think particularly with distance students, it usually focuses on, if they're working in industry, what they're doing in industry. And that can range. I mean, we've had distance students that are in the military working on submarines. We've got distance students that, you know, work in nuclear power plants, work in the automotive industry. It really just depends on what their field is as to what their specialization interest is. So really it's kind of just all over the place.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have, is there an accelerated master program for mechanical engineering?
There is an accelerated master's program. If you are say a distance student in our current mechanical engineering undergraduate program, if you have a 3.3 GPA and 90 hours of coursework, you can actually apply as an undergraduate to the graduate program. And if you meet those requirements, odds of getting accepted are pretty much 100%. And then once you're accepted into the graduate program, still as an undergraduate student, you can take graduate level courses. And the way that works is you can take up to 3 graduate level courses and double count those toward your ME undergraduate electives. So basically when you obtain your bachelor's degree, you've already got 3 hours. And you can actually even take more than that at the graduate level. You just can't double count them. So we have students that when they graduate with their bachelor's degree, they might have 9, 12, 15 hours of graduate credit. And then they've only got, you know, 15 more hours, say, to complete, which they can easily do in just a few semesters. So in terms of, and we do offer that. I mean, like I said, you know, we've got a large number of students at the undergraduate level that take distance through our online distance program at the undergraduate level, and those students are certainly eligible for the accelerated master's program through our distance program.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have, is there a difference in cost in tuition or delivery of instruction materials between online courses and the distance learning courses? For example, for fall is CRN 49117 and 49946. And I'd like to answer the part of the question regarding to the tuition cost. If you are applying as a distance learning student and you're taking distance learning classes, you will be charged a distance learning tuition fee. And right now it's $375 per credit hour. If you are a distance learning student, you cannot register for online courses that are being administered through the on-campus program. If, let's say, if you only have 1 or 2 classes left in order to complete the degree, and you need those classes in order to finish or graduate in time, and those are only offered on campus. Like Dr. Shepard mentioned earlier, the department, if you propose to the department, they were willing to work with you in figuring out a way that we'll be able to assist you. Dr. Shepard, would you like to add in anything regarding to that, to the answer?
Sure. I was trying to look up these CRN numbers, but I'm not sure. I don't know if they were for the spring semester, if they're for summer semester or fall. I'm not really sure what semester and what those are. I'm going to take a guess here. I want to make sure there's no confusion between distance and online, because a lot of people think of different things when they think of that. You know, I'm talking about a distance program where you watch the lecture videos that have been recorded like within that same day or within a couple of day time period, and you're working and you're taking tests that are current to that semester, and so you're working in a class that is current. Now, a lot of people think of online as kind of like a shelved course, you know, something that you pull off like YouTube, for example. At the graduate level, we do not currently offer that kind of program. Everything we offer is distance. It's up to date, it's current, and it's, you know, you're taking the same tests via distance that our on-campus students are taking. Now, we do have some sections listed in MyBama that are listed as online versions. And what those courses, those sections are, is those are reserved for, we have a few students, say for example, I've got one student this summer that is taking 2 classes at the same time. So they're watching my distance section of that course as an online course. But I'm requiring that they come into class and take the exams with the on-campus students. So that's not really, if you see one of those in the schedule, that's not really a class that's available to our distance students. That's something that we use on campus to deal with the scheduling issues. So as a distance student, you would sign up for the full-fledged distance version. So I think that may address that issue. Some students see those sections and they're not sure what they are, and you're not allowed to register for them. We do that on a case-by-case basis, and you have to have permission to get into those. So I don't know if that helped any.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have, can the program be finished in 1 year?
Oh boy, that's a loaded question. I mean, if you're a distance student, I mean, if you can take 15 hours a semester, you can do it in 1 year. I don't know if I've ever seen it. I mean, most distance students that I work with or that I'm familiar with tend to be professionals, that they're employed, working at a job, or they might be serving as an officer on a submarine or something like that. And while they certainly have time to take a class or maybe 2 classes, generally they don't have time to take like a 12-hour course load. And at the graduate level, we consider 12 hours to be a full-time load, although we have had students that have taken 15 hours. So, you know, taking 15 hours via distance is no different than taking 15 hours on campus. And so that's, you know, you're going to be watching 15 hours a lecture a week, submitting homework for that. I mean, a lot of professors submit homework through Blackboard on a regular basis. You're going to be taking the exams that go with those on the exam schedule, you know, that just like the students on campus were. So that's a pretty big load if you're working full-time. If you're just taking the course remotely, you know, you're in Australia, living in Australia, and you're not employed full-time, then I think you could probably complete the class in a year. I would probably suggest adding a summer term to go with it, just to make it a little bit more manageable, particularly if you've never done a distance, if you've never done a distance class, just to give yourself some time to kind of get used to how it works with the scheduling and those sorts of things. So it is possible. I don't necessarily recommend it, and I don't think most of our distance students are even attempting to accomplish that.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have, how soon would we need to change our area of focus if we decide to do so?
I think that also depends on how many courses you've already taken in a specific area. I mean, really, there's no deadline in terms of changing it. That the only issue becomes is if you're saying, you know, trying to get your 18 hours of specialization. Let's say a student comes to me and they're wanting to change from, I'll just use myself as an example, they want to change from thermal systems to acoustics, okay? And they've already taken 12 hours of thermodynamics, 12 hours of internal combustion engines, 12 hours of combustion. 12 or 3 hours of each of those courses, well, I'm going to say, okay, acoustics, internal combustion is not. I can't really add that as your specialization. Now you could take that course and use it in the other 12 hours, say as 6 hours of your closely related area. So it may not be that big of a stretch to change a few things around, and maybe only have, we might actually be able to make it work, or we may say, okay, you're going to have a couple of extra courses in here to do this. That's pretty rare. I don't really know if I've really had a situation where a student wants to change their area. Because usually, the first couple of semesters, you're taking a couple of math courses maybe, and you're taking, let's say a typical distance student might take 2 classes a semester. So within the first year, you've taken 4 courses. Well, that's 12 hours. You really haven't taken enough to really lock you into an area yet. You can still make some adjustments without really affecting what you've already taken. But once you get closer to the end of the program, if you decide, I want to do a full about face and change areas, that might require some additional courses. But I can't say that I've ever seen that happen.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have. For the accelerated program, does my GPA have to be at least a 3.3?
Yeah, unfortunately it does. That is a requirement of the graduate school, and they have a rule. You have to have 90+ hours of coursework and an undergraduate GPA of 3.3. And that's not something they've ever let me get around. There are things that they will let me petition to get waived, but unfortunately that is not one of them. They set those rules and we have to go by those.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. And I can see that there are a couple of students who are typing in their questions. Feel free to do so. Next question I have, 90+ hours would transfer hours.
Yeah, I'm assuming that's related to the accelerated master's. Yes. Once it says, on your transcript that you have total hours, including institution and transfer, of 90 hours, then you are eligible for the accelerated master's program. And if you don't have those hours, say you're not going to earn those hours until maybe you're taking summer school and you're not going to earn them until the end of summer, or you're not going to earn them until the end of fall. Let's just use fall as an example. Suppose you've got 85 hours now, and then you're going to be taking 12 hours in the fall. You can apply. Go ahead and apply now for admission in the spring. We'll look at your GPA, we'll evaluate all that, and then actually I can go ahead and admit you, but what the graduate school does is they hold your application. They will not admit you until you actually surpass the 90 hours maintaining the 3.3 GPA. But we can go ahead and do all the pre-evaluation up front, and then once you pass those 90 hours, you're automatically rolled over into the program, and then you can then start signing up for graduate courses.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question I have. If we took Dr. Shepard ME 400 level acoustic class, is there a way to shorten the work for the 500 level?
I haven't had that one before. No, unfortunately there's not. The graduate school has rules that we can't use 400 level courses for 500 level, so really the only way to do it would be to take the 500 level course. But I would expect you would do well in it, being as you've already seen a lot of the material before.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. And we're still open up the floor for questions. Feel free to type in your questions, and we will answer them accordingly. So I can see that there are no students typing in the questions. That would conclude our presentation. Thank you so much for joining us for the online information session for the Master in Mechanical Engineering. I apologize. Actually, we have one more question. That would be, how soon would we be hooked up with our individual advisor?
That's really kind of up to the student. It's not important that you're hooked up. I mean, it's advantageous if you can come up with an advisor before you start, just to get some advice. But if you kind of know what area of specialization you want, for example, if you're interested in internal combustion engines, you're probably going to know, okay, I could take an internal combustion engines class, heat transfer, thermodynamics, those things kind of make sense that they would fit in those areas. You can go ahead and start taking those kinds of courses. And then once you get, say, into your first semester, that would then be a good time to say, okay, I need to find a faculty advisor to get some advice on. Because some of the courses are fairly obvious, you know, like vibrations and acoustics, for example. Those are heavily related. So we allow you to go ahead and start selecting courses on your own, but we do like you to get advice from a faculty advisor to make sure that you're on the right track when you start selecting some of your other courses.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. Next question we have, do we find them or are they assigned to us? No,
you find them. Basically what you do is, and I suggest students go to the ME website and click on the faculty. I think it's maybe it's people. Let me go here real quick and see what it is. So if you go to me.eng.ua.edu, if you look on the far right, there's a faculty/staff tab, and if you pick on that, you'll see a listing of faculty members, and say pick Dr. Agarwal, the very first one. If you look under his name on the far right, there's a view profile. If you click on that, there is his biography, states where he got his degrees from, and then you can see there's a short paragraph and a list, in his case, of the types of research that he does. Now, you may not necessarily be interested in specializing in one of these specific areas, but you know, he has combustion. He has deflectometry and optical diagnostics, whatever that is, computational fluid dynamics, those sorts of things. So if you're interested in specializing kind of in an area related to that, then you could contact him and say, you know, I'm a distance master's student. Could you serve as my advisor and help me do things like pick classes? And I'm sure he or anybody else would be more than willing to help you. And so you could kind of go through the faculty members and see what kind of work they're doing and find one or two that works in an area that's related to what you're interested in specializing in, and then contact them and see if one of them would be willing to serve as an advisor.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. And I also included the link to the faculty directory in the chat box on the bottom left-hand side of the screen. So Trevor, you can always click on that link in order to go to that website. Next question we have, how old are the oldest distance learning master students? I'm curious.
Oh gosh, that's a statistic I do not have. I will, okay, you gave us some more information there. We do have some on-campus master's students that I would consider, I'm going to say on up in years. I'm not going to allude to how old I think they are. I think they're a couple of them are very comparable to the number that you put up there. I do know that we have a couple of off-campus students that have worked in industry for quite a while. I had one that had well over 10, 15 years of experience. So you can, you know, mid-30s, mid-40s, that's very common. So I don't know, I have no idea what the oldest is, but I would be surprised if the number I have is not higher than the number you put up there.
Thank you, Dr. Shepard. I can see that we still have students typing in the questions in the chat box, so we're just going to open up the floor in order for the students to type in the questions. Lauren said, it is a goal to complete the master program in engineering. So I can see that there are no more students who are typing in the questions. So I'd like to wrap up the presentation. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining our online information session for the Master in Mechanical Engineering program. Thank you, Dr. Shepard, for joining us today, and Rotai.